Chapter 585. He didn't want to wait any longer in a narrow alley outside the Marquis Manor. Su Yingxue threw herself at Chuihan. She clung to Chuihan with both hands and feet, her pouted red lips expressing her reluctance. "Your Highness, why didn't you stay for dinner? Aren't you hungry?" After a busy day, she was starving. Chuihan wasn't made of iron, after all. Chuihan held her face, his warm breath caressing her cheek. 1 a.m. hungry. Then why are you leaving? Because one only want to devour you, but unfortunately, it's not on the menu tonight. Chuihan lowered his head and took a bite of her lips. Her soft, red lips were like cotton candy, carrying a tempting, sweet scent that easily intoxicated him, making him lose his senses. Su Yingxu's face flushed, and waves of heat washed over her. This wasn't the first time she had heard Chuihan say this. But she couldn't fulfill Chuihan's desires yet. She rested her head on Chuihan's neck and spoke warmly, "Your Highness, please wait a little longer. Once we resolve the sisters' matter, we can slowly explain everything to grandfather." After persuading her grandfather, she could marry him. At that moment, "Why do you think I came out now?" Chuihan pinched her soft cheeks. "Why?" Mochi listened from behind the wall and almost stumbled to the ground. He hugged his sword and sighed. "Do you think severing ties with the imperial family is that easy? Even if Su Han was Su Qingzhi's granddaughter, severing ties with the royal family would require numerous procedures and face many difficulties. This matter seemed trivial between husband and wife, but with their identities, it was like a ticking time bomb thrown into the court. Without Chuihan's intervention, the Su family wouldn't be able to accomplish this in a short time. Chuihan hugged Su Yingxu's waist and felt her slender, soft body once again. His voice was slightly hoarse as he said, "Little dumpling, I don't want to wait anymore. One have waited long enough. From when she was 3 to 16. 13 whole years." Su Yingxue raised her head, her eyes reflecting Chuihan's deep affection as if they were an endless galaxy. Chuihan covered her eyes, then turned and left. The weather was cold, but Su Yingxue didn't feel it at all. As people passed by the Marquis Manor, shivering in the chilly night, she was enveloped in the warmth left behind by Chuihan. Everyone was waiting for her to return and eat. Once she sat down at the table, Su Xinlan sneered in a peculiar tone, "Our Yingxue is getting more capable. She didn't spend much time with Lord Liang, but she saw your Highness off so thoroughly that she didn't even want to come back." Su Qingzhi glared at her. "Say another word, and you're out." The chopsticks in Su Xinlan's hand trembled. She didn't dare to speak again, but her eyes held a deep meaning. Su Han explained on Su Yingxu's behalf, "Severing ties with Chu Xiaotian isn't a trivial matter. Your Highness must discuss it with Sister Yingxue. It's all for my sake. And, don't think negatively. If word gets out, people might think the Su family has ill intentions and tarnish Grandpa and family's reputation." Su Han's words made everyone understand Su Yingxue and silenced Su Xinlan. Who didn't know that Su Xinlan was the only one with malicious intentions among the Su family members present? Su Yingxue was very relieved. Seeing Su Han still sitting with them and even scolding Su Xinlan on her behalf proved that she hadn't given up. She was resilient. As for Su Xinlan, Su Yingxue sneered. "And, do you know how to treat a chronic infectious disease?" Chapter 586. Stupid aunties are meant to be scared. Su Xinlan scooped up a spoonful of bird's nest and said nonchalantly, "Who wants to know about this? Who would get consumption anyway? And who would even bother thinking about how to treat it? Mother, one remember hearing before that Madame Chang Yuan has had consumption for many years, and the imperial physicians have never been able to cure her." Su Miaoyan blinked her eyes. She looked at Su Yingxue curiously. "Sister Shui, you're so amazing. If you treated Madame Qingyuan, you could cure her, right? Su Yingxue nodded, it shouldn't be difficult. Qingyuan remained composed and added, if saving a life can accumulate merit and do good deeds, then it's a good thing. What good deeds? That old woman should have died a long time ago. Do you want to save her? Su Xinlan slammed the table and stood up, visibly flustered. She had been scheming in the Changxin Marquis manor for so many years, just waiting for that old woman to die, and then to eliminate her children one by one, letting her children inherit the Marquis manor. If that old woman didn't die, her plan wouldn't be able to proceed. If you say anyone deserves to die, it's you. Su Qingzhi glared. Beside him, Su Wei had already retrieved his saber. The fierce aura made it seem like if she said another word, even if she was his daughter, he would prioritize justice over family and cut her down as an enemy. Su Xinlan sat down with a pale face. She ate a tasteless meal and immediately left for the Marquis manor after she was done. She didn't dare to stay any longer. When she returned to the Marquis manor, she was still not at ease. She went to Madame Chang Yuan's courtyard and confirmed that she was still sickly. Hearing her violent coughing, she felt at ease and went back to sleep. In the Marquis of Marshall South's manor, it was rare for Su Qingzhi to reunite with his family. Since Su Han's matter had yet to be resolved, Su Yingxue decided to ask Su Dingwei's family and Madame Yin to stay in the manor for a few more days. Su Dingwei and Qingyuan didn't refuse, but Madame Yin was reluctant to leave. There are still 2 children at home and some matters that I have to go back to deal with. Miao Miao is a blabbermouth. I'm afraid she will cause trouble for you if she stays in the Marquis manor. I'd better bring her back tonight. Su Miaoyan finally left home, and when she heard that she was going back, she immediately broke into a smile and whimpered, "Mother, how can one be considered a blabbermouth? I was also born in the Marquis manor. The Marquis manor is also my home. One want to stay a few more days in the Marquis manor and at the same time. I can learn more from Sister Xue." "What can you learn?" "Learn Sister Xue's medical skills or learn to manage the Marquis manor. Can you do it?" Madame Yin shook her head. She was very clear about her youngest daughter's playful personality. After they split up, they were not as prominent as the Marquis manor and had always been dutiful. Even if they were to discuss marriage in the future, Madame Yin would never find Su Miaoyan a noble family like the regional prince's mansion. She only wanted her daughter to be happy and safe for the rest of her life. Su Miaoyan looked at Su Yingxue reluctantly, causing her heart to soften. She pulled Su Miaoyan to her side and put in a good word for Madame Yin. "Auntie, please let Miao Miao stay for a few days. She is right, the Marquis manor is also her home. Besides, Grandpa likes her. With a smart little girl like her around, Grandpa is very happy. It's enough for Grandfather to have you and Hainer to accompany him. One think Hainer is injured now. You still have to spend more effort to accompany her." Madame Yin declined politely, revealing a trace of concern. Chapter 587, Clever Little Witty Words. It's precisely because Sister Xue wants to accompany Sister Han that one want to stay and accompany Grandpa. Otherwise, Grandpa would be so lonely. Su Miaoyan had a pair of deer-like eyes and her voice was crisp and sweet, making people happy. Su Yingxue could not bear to let her go either. She hugged her tightly and looked at Madame Yin coquettishly. "Auntie, just let Miao Miao stay. She's so smart and won't cause trouble. I'll keep her in the residence and let her focus on accompanying Grandpa." "This." Sigh. Madame Yin waved her hand. "Forget it. If you don't find her troublesome, you can stay. But if she causes trouble, you have to tell me immediately. I'll come and pick her up." Before Madame Yin left, she poked Su Miaoyan's forehead. You have to behave yourself when you stay here this time. If you cause trouble, I'll be the first to tell your daddy to deal with you. I know. Su Miaoyan pouted. The moment Madame Yin left, she was like a little beast that had broken free from its restraints. She pulled Su Yingxue and jumped around happily. Sister Shui, I'm finally back. I can play with you again. You, smart little thing. You're staying here because you have a mission. You have to accompany Grandpa. I'm going to talk to my sister now. Su Yingxue pinched the tip of her nose. It was not entirely because she did not want to go back. During this period, the residence would probably not be peaceful. This little clever girl's eloquent mouth was still very useful. When Su Miaoyan heard this, she turned around with Su Yingxue and pushed her towards Su Qingzi's courtyard. It's better for Sister Shui to accompany Grandfather. Grandfather is not thinking about me at this moment. He'll be responsible for having fun with Sister Han. Hey! One haven't changed my sister's dress yet. Su Yingxue stood on the spot with her hands on her hips. She looked at the little young girl who was half the height of a person and ran as fast as a rabbit. Su Miaoyan shouted as she ran. Saint Juan is there to change the dressing. Sister Shui, don't worry, and go find Grandpa. Su Yingxue raised her eyebrows in surprise. This young girl is really smart. She's only been here for a day, and she already knows everyone in the residence. No wonder she was able to have a happy ending in her previous life. Su Yingxue sighed a little. In her previous life, her life was not even as good as Su Miaoyan's. Of course, she did not foresee that Su Miaoyan in this life would have such great wealth to enjoy. She went to Su Qingzi's courtyard. Thinking that her grandpa might be worried about Su Han, she told him what Chui Han said tonight. Grandfather, don't worry. This time, the one who was bullied was a cousin. Our Marquis Manor will seek justice for her and rescue her from that place. We will make them pay with blood. Under the moonlight, Su Yingxue's beautiful eyes were filled with a bloodthirsty light. It was dangerous and charming. Su Qingzhi sized her up a few more times, his eyes filled with a trace of gratification. Grandfather has not been in Jiangdu City for a few years, and you have grown a lot. Now you are already the eldest young miss of the Marquis Manor who can take charge of an area. After being praised, Su Yingxue held onto Su Qingzi's arm and acted like a spoiled little girl by his side. The young miss of the Marquis Manor is also Grandpa's granddaughter. If I'm too useless, wouldn't one be embarrassing Grandfather? She had wasted her grandpa's hard work in the past. In this life, she must take back what she had lost in the past. Grandfather has never felt ashamed of you. Even if you were bullied in the past, it proves that you are a kind child. You just care too much about family. Su Qingzhi patted Su Yingxue's head. When he saw Su Yingxue, he was always in a daze, feeling that her mother was still around. Chapter 588. Su Qingzi's words were sincere and earnest, but now, looking at her face, which was as beautiful as her mother's, he was afraid that he would invite disaster. Yingxue, tell Grandpa honestly. When did you become acquainted with Ninth Prince? Su Qingzi's face was very kind, but there was a look of scrutiny in his eyes. This scrutinizing gaze was like a sword and lightning, causing Su Yingxue to be unable to move. She lowered her eyes. When your highness came to visit me, he gave me a few stalks of lingzhi. Do you know who your highness is? Su Qingzhi said lightly as he walked. Your highness is the god of war of the great Qing dynasty. He is extremely noble. Su Yingxue replied. However, she had a feeling that this was not the answer Grandpa wanted to hear. Other than identity, do you know the blood feud of your highness? The imperial consort died in vain, and his elder brother has been missing for many years. How could he use his own body to shake the current court and make the emperor unable to sleep and eat for so many years? Su Qingzhi asked. Su Yingxue nodded silently. I know all of this. The imperial consort's death was caused by the emperor. The young 8th prince's disappearance is probably related to the emperor. Su Qingzhi's heart sank. You knew about it. Su Yingxu's eyebrows twitched. Grandpa was testing her. He had seen through her relationship with Qingzhi, which was why he had asked her. Su Yingxu's heart was beating wildly, but she maintained a calm expression. So what if I know? Grandpa, is this a secret? Su Qingzhi's brows furrowed tighter and tighter. Other than me, even your eldest uncle and father would not know about these things, but you know everything. How close are you to 9th Prince? That was why he had exposed all his scars for her to see. For a man who had been through hundreds of battles, the only people who could make him reveal his fragility and tenderness were the people who were extremely important to him. Could it be that his granddaughter and Qingzhi had already, Grandpa? Su Yingxu's sweet voice broke Su Qingzhi's train of thought. Didn't I tell you before? The Silver Moon Pavilion came to rob my mother's handwritten letter. I've fought with the Silver Moon Pavilion and even snatched their #1 assassin from the Silver Moon Steward. It's not difficult for me to understand some secrets of the court. Why do I need 9th Prince to tell me personally? Su Qingzhi was stunned for a moment before asking her, is that so? Of course. Grandpa, are you suspecting 9th Prince? Su Yingxu's eyes were innocent. 9th Prince saved me previously because of grandfather. Now, he's helping his cousin because of the Marquis Manor. Outsiders might think that your highness is biased, but Grandpa, don't you know who's right and who's wrong? Your highness is helping justice and fairness. Su Yingxu's words made Su Qingzhi unable to find any flaws. Qingzhi knew his temper. He also knew that Su Dingheng was a good-for-nothing in the current Marquis Manor. Su Hao was far away in Bamboo Leaf Pass. If he wanted to do something, the Su family could not help him. The only thing that could benefit him was Su Yingxue inheriting Long Shuli's heaven-defying medical skills. Grandpa, you've also thought of it. Your Highness helping our Marquis Manor won't bring him any benefits on the surface, but your Highness is also an ordinary person. I've also treated his old injuries before. Your Highness helping us is also helping himself. Su Yingxue explained the matter more clearly. I see. Su Qingzhi stroked his beard. Su Yingxu's words could make people understand. After all, even Chu Mingyuan respected Long Shuli. Su Qingzi's suspicion dissipated a little, but he couldn't help but remind Su Yingxue earnestly, Yingxue, Grandpa isn't slandering 9th Prince this time. Grandpa respects heroes and values heroes, but every hero faces countless dangers. Chapter 589, bitter he didn't want Su Yingxue to end up like Long Shuli, caught up in life and death whirlpools. Su Yingxue understood some of Su Qingzi's concerns, but her experience with Qingzhi couldn't be explained in a few words. Since she couldn't explain it now, she might as well calm Su Qingzhi down first. She helped Su Qingzhi back to his room to rest. Grandpa, don't worry. One understand what you mean. You've become much more sensible now. Grandpa is very reassured about you. Su Qingzhi patted her head, his face full of affection. In the prince's mansion of Yangon County, Chu Xiaotian returned to the manor in a daze. When he walked into the hall, he could still hear Madame Xing's cursing. The old regional prince had already gotten calluses on his ears from the noise. When he saw Chu Xiaotian return, he hurriedly went forward to show concern for him. Son, why did you come back so late today? You were at the Marquis Manor. The old regional prince wanted to know if Su Han had a dispute with Chu Xiaotian in the Marquis mansion after she was kidnapped. However, he saw Liang Jin standing behind Chu Xiaotian. The old regional prince raised his eyebrows. Lord Liang, why are you here? After Liang Jin greeted the old regional prince, he went straight to business. Old regional prince, this is the complaint that Miss Su Han has submitted to the capital prefecture. She wants to break off all ties with the Prince of Yangon County. I have been ordered to investigate. Please cooperate with me. Break off all ties. The old regional prince was shocked. What? Break off all ties. That little wretch has grown up. Did she dare to break off all ties with my son? Does she want to die? Madame Xing cursed. She didn't look like a noblewoman at all. The old regional prince quickly stopped Madame Xing in front of outsiders. Enough. Haven't you embarrassed yourself enough? Lord Liang is the governor of the capital prefecture, and even he has come to our residence. You're still fooling around. How am I fooling around? Madame Xing's face was sharp and mean. She couldn't stand the old regional prince scolding her. She had never been favored since she was young, and the old regional prince didn't treat her well. She tortured Su Han because she was favored by the old regional prince, who praised her a lot. Her son also protected her and treated her like a treasure. Su Han got all the love that she couldn't get in her life. How could she not be jealous? She didn't vent all her anger on Su Han. Mother, Chu Xiaoshan's voice was low and depressed. What did you do to Su Han when I was not around? What can I do to her? That little wretch, did she complain to you again? Madame Xing rolled up her sleeves guiltily, but she was still trying to force herself. Old regional prince, Madame Xing, can you assist me in handling this case? Want to gather the servants in the residence to make some inquiries. Liang Jin asked. He knew that this was the best time to interrogate the regional prince's mansion. The old regional prince had no choice but to gather all the servants and let them accept Liang Jin's questioning. Liang Jin's ability to judge people was unparalleled in the entire Jiangdu city. He went to Min Jia's courtyard and collected the stolen goods that had not been cleaned up in the pool. After sealing them, he immediately wanted to interrogate Madame Xing and Min Jia. However, Chu Xiaotian came to tell him, Lord Liang, it's already late today. My mother and sister are both unwell. Could you please make an exception and interrogate them in 2 days? No, Your Highness has already witnessed my handling of the case at the Marquis Manor. In the matter of Miss Han's assassination, we must act swiftly to apprehend the true culprit, Liang Jin refused firmly. Chapter 590, Cold-blooded person, but mother and sister are indeed unwell. If you don't believe me, I can accompany you to see if they have a way to accept your interrogation, Chu Xiaotian said in a deep voice. Liang Jin's heart was clouded with suspicion. He had heard about the Min Jia County Lord's severe injury, but when he saw Madame Xing just now, although there were still wounds on her face, it should be fine for him to interrogate her. He followed Chu Xiaotian to Madame Xing's room with suspicion. Madame Xing's face was swollen, and she looked terrible. She vomited from time to time, and the smell of foreign objects around her was very strong. The servants in the room couldn't help but cover their noses. Liang Jin also frowned. Wasn't Madame fine just now? Why did she suddenly become like this? The old regional prince looked troubled. This is all because too many things have happened recently, causing Madame's emotions to be unstable and her body to be in a bad condition. Chu Xiaotian then brought Liang Jin to Min Jia's courtyard. Min Jia was lying on the bed with a broken leg and was crying. She didn't look well either. Liang Jin tried to ask her a few questions. Other than crying, she was throwing a tantrum, and no one could do anything about it. At this moment, Chu Xiaotian suggested, Lord Liang, please give us a few more days. Even if you want to investigate the case, you have to wait until they recover. Liang Jin told Chu Xiaotian, "In 2 days at most, I will personally report to the emperor and send the imperial physician to the regional prince's mansion to treat the two of you. I will also send someone to keep an eye on you. One hope your highness will not do anything to hinder the investigation. I naturally want." Chu Xiaoshan's entire person was emitting a gloomy aura. After Liang Jin left, the two women's quarrels erupted behind Chu Xiaotian. Min Jia was carried to Madame Xing's room and cried to her. "Mother! What is brother doing? You want me to pretend to be ill in the middle of the night? Are you going to let me sleep? I'm so seriously injured now, but brother doesn't know how to take care of me." Min Jia was full of grievances and her face was full of complaints. She was already very unhappy that she couldn't kill Su Han today. "Ugh," Madame Xing spat again. Her pale face was full of resentment. "What is Xiaotian doing? Is he going to help that little bitch Su Han kill me and his sister? The two of you, you're still so arrogant and unrepentant even at the brink of death." Your Highness' eyes were red and filled with extreme disappointment. "Do you know what will happen if you act recklessly? I never thought that the two of you would have the guts to kill someone. The one who was killed wasn't anyone else but Xiaoshan's wife, the daughter-in-law of our regional prince's mansion." Madame Xing and Min Jia were both uncomfortable after being scolded. Min Jia mumbled, "She's not dead." "That's right." Madame Xing snorted. "After she dies, you can glare at us again. A little slut has such a big life." "Madame, Min Jia. When did you become so cold-blooded? Not to mention that she's our daughter-in-law, she's just an unrelated person. Is a human life so cheap in your eyes?" The old regional prince's eyes widened in disbelief. Madame Xing and Min Jia suddenly felt guilty. They didn't dislike Su Han that much. At first, they just wanted to torture her, which was their bad taste. It was Su Han's fault for tolerating them and making them think that Su Han was weak and easy to bully. But who would have thought that things would develop to this point? Chapter 591, will be exiled. Her life cannot be taken lightly. She's not someone you can kill at will. Chu Xiaotian suddenly rushed in with a cold aura. He stared at Min Jia coldly. "Who asked you to send people to kill Hainer?" Min Jia felt a chill down her spine. She leaned into Madame Xing's arms and acted coquettishly. I just can't stand her. Wasn't she kidnapped by the Su family? That assassin is so powerful. He even killed many people in our residence. She had sent out all the elites of the regional prince's mansion. She had not expected that all of them would die. Not a single one survived. Not to mention killing Su Han. If she hadn't been kidnapped, the two of you would have been buried with her." Chu Xiaotian roared at them. It was the first time in many years that he had lost his temper with his family. He had loved his mother and sister since he was young. That was why this incident was so unexpected. "You're my son and Min Jia's biological brother. Are you going to treat your mother and sister like this because of that little bitch from the Su family?" Madame Xing cried and felt sad. He hated Su Han even more. "You gave birth to our son, but our son also has his own family. Look at what you're doing now. Would our son be able to reunite with his family? That Hainer looks gentle on the surface, but she's the strongest and toughest on the inside. You've hurt her so much. I'm afraid this isn't something that can be resolved by her reuniting with our son." The old regional prince sighed. When Liang Jin came to visit just now, he made it very clear. Su Han was determined to break all ties with our son. What did he mean by breaking all ties? It was to settle all the debts with their regional prince's mansion. They had to spit out everything that they owed Su Han, bullied her, and snatched her belongings. What else does she want? We've already deceived Liang Jin. I don't believe that he, the governor of the capital prefecture, would dare to touch Min Jia and me. Madame Xing hugged Min Jia arrogantly. With her protection, Min Jia was still arrogant. That's right. My brother is the 9th prince. Aren't you going to help us and help Su Han? If I don't help you, you will be captured by Liang Jin tonight. He can sentence you to exile tomorrow. Chu Xiaotian roared coldly. Madame Sheng and Min Jia hugged each other and trembled. What? Exiled? How could it be so serious? Brother, are you lying to me? How could one be exiled? My leg hasn't recovered yet. One don't want to. Min Jia was so frightened that she cried and hid in Madame Xing's arms. She was still thinking about Su Jinxian. If she was exiled, how could she be with him? If you don't want to be exiled, then do as I say. Pretend to be sick at home and don't meet anyone who comes. Otherwise, one will not be able to protect you. Chu Xiaoshen's eyes were filled with frustration. He didn't even have time to fall into the fear of losing Su Han. He had to wake up quickly to protect his family. Otherwise, with the Su family's current status, his ruthless mother and stupid sister would all end up in a miserable state. When he left Madame Xing's room with Min Jia, he asked someone to put her in the garden alone. At this moment, it was already past midnight. There was no moon in the sky, and the night was especially cold and gloomy. Min Jia looked at Chu Xiaoshen's gloomy face and rubbed her arms in fear. Brother, what are you doing? I'm so seriously injured. If you don't let me rest, who taught you to treat Hainer like this? Chu Xiaotian approached her, his handsome face carrying a frightening gloominess. Chapter 592, Su Jinxuan's plan. He had never paid attention to the affairs of the inner courtyard before because Su Han had always handled them well. Min Jia's temperament was such that she would only occasionally engage in minor mischief. But now, she had resorted to murder. Min Jia frantically rolled her eyes. Brother, what are you saying? Who taught me? No one taught me. No. Chu Xiaotian narrowed his eyes. If not, where did the maggots in your lotus pond come from? Who taught you such insidious methods as pricking your fingers with silver needles? Anne. Who told you to mobilize the elites in the regional prince's mansion? No. There was no one. Brother, if you don't believe me, you might as well hand me over to Lord Liang. Anyway, I'm now a cripple with a broken leg. No one will want me in the future. If brother thinks I'm a burden, just chase me out as soon as possible. Min Jia was very flustered, reciting these words as if from a script. Chu Xiaotian, who had been suspicious, could not continue. His face darkened. I'm warning you. If you don't want anything to happen, don't believe the words of those crafty people. Be a good county lord. In the future, brother will find you a good marriage. Otherwise, no one can protect you. Min Jia kept her head down, not daring to look at her brother's expression, afraid he would see through her. Although Chu Xiaotian had left, he still sent servants to carry her back. As soon as she returned to her room, Min Jia chased all the servants away. She was waiting for Su Jinxian. Su Jinxian was the one who had taught her the words she had used to deal with Chu Xiaotian and dispel his doubts. Otherwise, she would not have been able to hide from her brother and would have been discovered. However, Su Jinxian didn't come to see her as usual when she waited until dawn. In the Marquis of Marshal South's manor, Su Yingxue woke up early to change Su Han's dress. Her medicine was much more effective than ordinary medicine. In just one day, all the hideous wounds on Su Han's body were healing. Su Yingxue wrapped a small wooden stick around Su Han's finger and comforted her gently. Sister's hand is seriously injured, but it will recover after some rest. Don't worry. Su Han smiled but didn't say anything. Su Miaoyan sat beside Su Han with a smile on her face, holding a smile, and blinked strangely. Sister Han, one heard that 10 fingers are connected to the heart. When you were injured, didn't it hurt? Why is there no sound when applying medicine now? When one fell off my horse and scraped my skin, would cry out in pain every time medicine was applied. Su Yingxue took the time to scratch Su Miaoyan's nose. Because you're still a little girl. We are all adults. How can we be like you? Su Miaoyan instantly pouted unhappily. How am I small? I'm almost 13 years old. Mother said that in 2 years, you'll be coming of age to discuss marriage. You're already thinking about marriage at such a young age. Don't tell me you even have a sweetheart. Su Yingxu's eyes revealed a trace of mischief. Su Miaoyan's face instantly turned red. Sister Shui, you. How dare you joke with me like this? I'm going to complain to Grandpa. Su Miaoyan and Su Yingxue were in a mess, and the medicine hut was filled with their laughter. Su Han couldn't help but smile when she saw them trying so hard to make her happy. Her delicate little face was still injured, but her smile was like a lotus flower blooming, beautiful to behold. Chapter 593, Ziwei. Late her voice was gentle, and her gaze was gentle as well. Sister, I know you both are worried about me, but after all, I've died once. I'll cherish this hard-earned life and want to live every day well in the future. Su Yingxue finished bandaging Su Han's hands. Su Han looked at her hands with a smile mixed with a hint of bitterness. Although these hands can heal, I'm afraid I won't be able to touch things like playing the zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting anymore. Who said that? Su Yingxue hurriedly interjected. Sister zither skills are unparalleled and famous throughout Jiangdu City. In the future, we'll still listen to you play high mountains and flowing water. Su Yingxue knew how important these hands were to Su Han. But I've already asked young Master Wan. He said my hand has healed, but it will only be for decoration in the future. In the cold winter months, my joints might swell and hurt. Su Han shook her head slightly. Su Yingxue gritted her teeth. That old man, what nonsense is he spouting? Telling the blunt truth and still putting Su Han down at a time like this. He was asking for trouble. I'm not that fragile. It's just that I might have to rely on others more in the future. Seeing Su Yingxue angry, Su Han tried to calm her down. She suddenly remembered something very important. Yingxue, can you help me properly thank the person who saved me yesterday? She could tell that Ziwei wasn't an ordinary person, and ordinary people wouldn't be able to get close to him. Since he listened to Su Yingxue, she could only entrust this matter to her. His name is Ziwei, he's my guard. I'll go look for him later. But he has a different personality, never interacts with others, so he won't come to visit. Just as Su Yingxue finished speaking, Su Miaoyan snorted lightly, her eyes teasing. Sister Shui herself isn't ordinary, so the people around her are all extraordinary. Hey, you little girl, I think you're asking for trouble. Su Yingxue pressed Su Miaoyan down and flicked her head, instructing her to stay with Su Han while she went to look for Ziwei. Ziwei wasn't in the manor. Remembering that Saint Juan had treated his injuries, she went to ask him. Saint Juan was hanging a rope in the air, lying on it calmly. That little assassin doesn't even acknowledge my existence. How am I supposed to treat his injuries? What? You didn't treat him. Saint Juan, you're asking for trouble. 3 silver needles flew out of Su Yingxue's hand and pulled Saint Juan off the rope. She immediately went to find Ziwei. Perhaps because she had some impression of him, Su Yingxue went straight to the blacksmith shop where she found Ziwei last time. She was afraid that Ziwei would be on guard, so she jumped into the yard and shouted, "Ziwei, Ziwei." The man in the room heard the commotion, put away the knife, and opened the door. However, he didn't expect Su Yingxue to rush in, catching him without clothes on. So when Su Yingxue entered, she saw him bare-chested. Ziwei, the moment Su Yingxue stepped in, she was captivated by his physique. He had a perfect male physique, with every line of his body perfectly smooth. But that wasn't what caught Su Yingxue's attention. What she noticed was another serious sword wound on Ziwei's body, along with many other scars. It looked very deep, and blood was still seeping out of it. Ziwei was holding a thread in his hand. Su Yingxue walked up to him and gently stroked his wound with her fingers, her eyes filled with self-blame and guilt. "I'm sorry for being late." "No." Ziwei remained as cold as ever. Chapter 594, His heart was hooked. Behind him were fire and medicine, and he never blamed Su Yingxue for not applying medicine for him. It was all his own affair. "What do you mean nothing? If I'm late, I'm late. If I've neglected you, I've neglected you. Can't you show some backbone and throw a tantrum at me?" Su Yingxue stomped her foot in frustration. Why didn't this man care about her? Ziwei looked at her blankly. No. Su Yingxue was speechless. It was like talking to a wall. Forget it, she gave up. Ziwei was like a wooden person. Besides the ice in his heart, he had no emotions and wouldn't lose his temper. She shouldn't make things difficult for him. Lie down. I'll treat your wound and brew some medicine for you. Nevertheless, he still listened to Su Yingxue. After lying down, he seemed even more like a wooden person. Besides his breathing, there was no sound from him. Even when Su Yingxue stitched up his wound, he didn't even furrow his brow. Instead, he quietly fell asleep. Su Yingxue's eyes filled with heartache. She pinched Ziwei's cheek and pouted. If you act like this, I'll feel more and more guilty. She had pulled him out of the Silver Moon Pavilion, only to have him injured again and again. Luckily, she could heal him. Taking advantage of his sleep, Su Yingxue went into Medicine King Valley. She fetched the spiritual spring water and brewed the antidote for him. She calculated that 2 more times, the poison accumulated in Ziwei's body for many years should be cleared. This way, he would become a normal person again. Just the thought of it made her very happy. She sat by Ziwei's bedside with a bowl of medicine in her hand. When he woke up, she couldn't help but smile. Little did she know that when Ziwei opened his eyes, he saw such a pure and flawless smile, like peach blossoms blooming in March, blooming brightly and passionately. Ziwei's heart was stirred. Su Yingxue saw him open his eyes and helped him up to drink the medicine. Ziwei held the medicine in his hand. Su Yingxue even took out a small paper bag from her bosom. She opened the paper bag and stuffed one of the candies into Ziwei's mouth. She took out another and shook it at him. Here, I'll give you another one after you finish the medicine. Ziwei obediently drank all the medicine and waited for Su Yingxue to stuff the second candy into his mouth. Holding the candy in his mouth, Ziwei hesitated to bite it. He asked, "Have you been carrying it with you?" His gaze landed on the sugar packet in Su Yingxue's hand. Su Yingxue stuffed the candy bag back into her belt and raised her eyebrows. Of course. If you don't listen, I can only feed you candy. If I don't bring it with me, what if you get injured again and refuse to take your medicine? After all, protecting her was a dangerous job. He was either stabbed or cut every few days. If she couldn't treat him in time and couldn't bring him candy, then she was too much of a master. Ziwei lowered his head, and a warmth that others couldn't understand entered his wooden eyes. Su Yingxue brought Ziwei back to the Marquis Manor. The Marquis Manor had many injured people in the past 2 days, and it was bustling with activity. The case was handed over to Liang Jin to investigate, and Su Yingxue became a doctor at home with peace of mind. In Fengzhou Palace, Chu Xiaotian kneeled in front of the Empress. Nephew's family has met with such an unexpected disaster. The Su family wants to separate me and my beloved wife. I hope that Imperial Aunt will seek justice for nephew. The Empress sat on the throne and ordered someone to help Chu Xiaotian up. She comforted him gently. I know that you are a good child. I also know about the matter between you and the princess. It was all because of Su Yingxue. I naturally won't stand by and watch the two of you fight to such an extent. Chapter 595. Things turn around. She appeared like a compassionate elder and called Chu Qingye inside, instructing, Ye, Xiaotian is your elder brother, and Su Han is also your sister-in-law. One know you wouldn't bear to see them separated and the regional prince's mansion in such a state. Mother, I will do everything in my power to help reunite our elder brother's family. A hint of malice flickered in Chu Qingye's eyes. He naturally had to assist Chu Xiaotian. Assist him, and teach Su Yingxue a lesson. Su Yingxue waited in the Marquis Manor for 3 days until Jilan smiled and came to report, Miss, Lord Liang is here. There must be some progress in Miss Han's case. Su Yingxue smiled. I trust Lord Liang's efficiency. In the front hall, she treated Liang Jin with utmost respect and even personally served him tea. Liang Jin stood to accept the tea, but his expression wasn't favorable. Miss Su, I'm here to discuss the case. Could you please bring out Lord Su and Miss Su Han's family? One have some questions to ask. Su Yingxue had someone bring Su Han out, but from Liang Jin's tone, the outcome didn't seem as expected. Su Dingwei was busy in the army, so Qinwan accompanied Su Han. Regional Princess, are you sure that everything you said is true? Liang Jin asked upon seeing Su Han, showing her the complaint and medical report. Su Han's gaze was firm. Every word one spoke was true. Lord Liang, you've already inquired and examined my injuries. Why ask again today? Su Yingxue and Qinwan shared the same doubts. Liang Jin produced another confession. This is what I've investigated, the testimonies of the servants of the regional prince's mansion, Madame Xing, and the Minjia County Lord. Their accounts differ significantly from yours, regional princess, and it implicates Miss Su. Liang Jin's gaze fell on Su Yingxue. Su Yingxue and Su Han read the confession together, and Su Han trembled uncontrollably. They're twisting the truth. How could this be possible? She, usually elegant, clenched her fists tightly, her eyes filled with intense hatred. They've bullied me and now they're slandering me like this. Su Yingxue glanced at the testimony. It stated that Su Han, wielding the authority of the steward, had bullied Madame Xing and the Minjia County Lord at the regional prince's mansion. Despite their repeated concessions, they couldn't tolerate it any longer when Su Han fell ill. They've cleaned up their image, only to falsely accuse Su Han now. This is outrageous. They've gone too far at the regional prince's mansion. Hainer has never harmed them in the slightest. Qinwan was so furious she threw the testimony to the ground. Su Yingxue's expression betrayed her confusion. She hadn't expected Chu Xiaotian to react this way in just 2 or 3 days. It was truly disgusting. Miss Su, with the case having progressed to this point, one must investigate it more carefully. The regional prince's mansion even tasked me to convey their message. They say that if regional princess is willing to return, they'll overlook the past and not pursue the matter of princess want to break the ties with regional prince. Impossible! Su Han exclaimed angrily as soon as Liang Jin finished speaking. I will never go back. She was unwilling to let this matter go again. Su Yingxue picked up the testimony and handed it to Liang Jin with a cold demeanor. Lord Liang, our Su family will not let this matter rest with the regional prince's mansion. Please investigate it thoroughly. Liang Jin knew this was the case, so he merely conveyed the message and planned to leave. However, on his way out, he happened to encounter Chu Xiaotian and Chu Qingye. Chu Qingye politely greeted him, stating that they had come to apologize to Su Han and take her back to the prince's mansion. Chapter 596. Try touching her again. After Liang Jin paid his respects, he returned to continue the investigation. Chu Qingye and Chu Xiaotian entered the main hall. Su Han, having not yet been carried back after seeing Liang Jin, suddenly saw Chu Xiaotian and was overwhelmed with humiliation and anger, causing her to spit out a mouthful of blood. Puff! Su Han nearly tumbled off her chair. Chu Xiaotian rushed forward to assist her. Hainer! Don't touch me! Su Han pushed his hand away, her eyes filled with coldness and disdain. Su Yingxue hurriedly helped Su Han up and stood between her and Chu Xiaotian. She administered a pill to Su Han and glared at Chu Xiaotian. My sister doesn't welcome your highness. Please step back. The main gate of the Marquis Manor is over there. It turned out that she still maintained politeness towards them. After all, her status was evident. However, after Su Han spat out blood, Su Yingxue felt that being polite to these two was undeserved. Politeness paled in comparison to Su Han's health. Qingzhi, fearing for Su Han's newly recovered health, quickly directed the servants, "Someone, take Miss back to her room." As the servants came to carry Su Han, Chu Xiaotian reached out to hold her hand. Hainer, I've made a decision. Regardless of what happened, as long as you come back to me, we can forget everything. You are still my regional princess. Before he could touch Su Han, Su Yingxue lashed out with her whip, leaving a bloody mark on the back of his hand. The back of Chu Xiaoshan's hand, from which blood dripped, he glared furiously at Su Yingxue. Su Yingxue! How dare you injure this king? The relationship between me and Hainer has been ruined by you time and time again. What are your intentions? I have no ulterior motives. One simply believe that your highness is too weak and unworthy of my sister. If you dare to touch her again, one will break your hand next time. Su Yingxue's lips curled sharply, and a chilling aura emanated from her beautiful face. Gritting his teeth, Chu Xiaotian found himself unable to confront her with such an aura. While they spoke, Su Han was already being carried away. Chu Xiaotian watched her leave with reluctance. Chu Qingye placed a hand on his shoulder, reminding him, "Brother, don't worry. Sister-in-law will return to your side one day." Chu Qingye then turned to look at Su Yingxue, feeling a flutter in his heart. No matter how many times he looked at her face, he couldn't help but be moved. However, Su Yingxue treated him so coldly. She spoke again, "If there's nothing else, take care." She was eager to see them leave. Of course. Su Yingxue, my elder brother, has already stated his intentions. Everything in the past is a misunderstanding. If Miss Su Han is willing, she can still return to the prince's mansion and become the regional princess. Chu Qingye's gaze remained fixed on Su Yingxue. Although he harbored both love and hatred for her, after these days of training, he had learned to restrain his emotions in her presence. You two aren't blind. You must have seen my cousin's attitude, right? How shameless is Prince Yangon County? He still expects my cousin to forget about the past. Su Yingxue found their family situation laughable. Su Yingxue, don't try to sow discord. My mother and sister are willing to live in peace with Hainer. They will come and apologize to her. Your evil scheme will not succeed. Chu Xiaoshen's eyes darkened. He was determined to bring Su Han back. He vowed that she would never see Su Yingxue again in this lifetime. Chapter 597. To apologize to cousin. Su Yingxue's eyes rolled. This Chu Xiaotian was no fool. He had managed to turn the situation around in such a short time, and he had even enlisted her rival Chu Qingye's help. He must have something even more disgusting up his sleeve if he wanted Madame Sheng and Min Jia to apologize to him. Su Yingxue smirked. Alright, 111 wait with my cousin at the Marquis Manor. Let's see how your mother and sister apologize and how sincere they are. After saying that, Su Yingxue didn't even give them time to react and promptly chased them away. Outside the manor, Chu Xiaoshen's face remained grim. Chu Qingye reminded him, since brother has already thought of what to do, then this apology must be made. You must also show your sincerity. Chu Xiaotian thought for a moment and nodded. I know. I will restrain mother and Min Jia. However, I am not familiar with Lord Liang, the capital prefecture's side. What he meant was that he wanted Chu Qingye to lend a hand. After all, Chu Qingye was the most powerful among the princes. He was also the temporary minister of justice, so he wielded more power than him. Chu Qingye reassured him, don't worry, elder brother. Lord Liang's trial won't be so smooth, nor will it be too fast. Elder brother can still delay. Chu Xiaotian felt relieved. He returned to the manor and informed Madame Sheng and Min Jia about his apology. In the manor, Su Han was so angry that she couldn't even take a sip of water upon hearing that they were going to apologize. Qingwan's heart ached terribly. Hainer, don't be like this. Don't hurt yourself for those people. You can't let anything happen to you again. Her daughter was already riddled with holes. Why was she still suffering? Lying on the bed, Su Han's face was pale. The anger in her heart burned, making her feel uncomfortable. Sister, there's no need to be like this. Answer a few questions for me first. Tomorrow, when they come to my door, I'll make sure they regret it. Su Yingxue came and held Su Han's hand, conveying a strong sense of security to her through her touch. Su Han sat up and answered Su Yingxue's questions seriously. Early the next morning, Su Yingxue ordered people to carry Su Han out. She had suggested that Su Han wear a veil. After all, she was a woman, and it wouldn't look good for her to appear with wounds all over her face. However, Su Han was resilient. She didn't wear a veil and appeared in front of everyone with a wounded face. People came and went at the entrance of the manor, all discussing, isn't this Miss Su Han who wants to break off all ties with the regional prince's mansion? Why does she have injuries all over her face? Miss Han is indeed worthy of being the daughter of a noble family. Even with injuries, she still looks delicate and beautiful. What a fine young lady. How did she end up injured like this? Most of them felt sorry for Su Han. The carriage from the regional prince's mansion had just arrived. Min Jia was still in the carriage. When she heard the discussions, she exploded. Ignorant. They're all lowlifes. What do they know? Lowly peasants. How despicable. Madame Sheng was also furious. Enough. Did you two forget Xiaoshen's warning? If you don't want to be exposed and exiled, get out of the car and apologize to your daughter-in-law. The old regional prince urged them with a serious expression. Today, he couldn't accompany them out of the car, but he reminded Chu Xiaotian again, both of you, remember this. No matter how the Su family makes things difficult for you, you must not make things difficult for your daughter-in-law. You must be humble. Otherwise, neither one nor Xiaotian can save you. Chapter 598. humiliate him back, understood? Min Jia's face bore a lingering bitterness. In the end, she still had to apologize to Su Han, that despicable woman. She refused to accept it. She wouldn't accept it, no matter what. Madame Xing's face was also filled with unwillingness. How could she lower her head? But then she thought, if Su Han remained resolute in cutting ties with them, and if the case continued to be investigated, she and Min Jia would be sentenced by Lord Liangjin. They might not face death, but they would surely be exiled. Compared to exile, enduring a moment of anger now and persuading Su Han to return was the wiser choice. Once she returned to the regional prince's mansion and fell into their hands, they would teach Su Han a lesson. With this in mind, Madame Xing took a deep breath and, after Min Jia was carried out of the carriage, followed suit. As soon as the two of them arrived, the crowd immediately made their way, with some recognizing their identities and pointing fingers at them. Min Jia glanced at them with disdain and snapped, "Peasants, get lost. Stay away from me." From the beginning, the people's impression of Min Jia wasn't favorable. Feeling frustrated, Min Jia arrived at the entrance of the manor. When she saw Su Yingxue, her whole body trembled involuntarily. She was afraid of Su Yingxue's brutality. This woman was too ruthless and showed no mercy. Su Yingxue saw their approach and spoke loudly, "Madam Xing, Min Jia County Lord, one heard you're here today to apologize to my sister." Her voice was clear, and everyone at the entrance of the Marquis Manor could hear it. Many nodded in agreement, saying, "I heard Miss Su Han was tormented by those two tiger-like old women. Of course, they should apologize. In my opinion, they should kneel and apologize to Miss Su Han." "That's right. Kneel and apologize. Kneel and apologize." The crowd's cheers grew louder. Madame Xing's expression turned sour, and Min Jia turned around to shout, "What business is it of yours? You bunch of troublemakers. Shut up and stay out of my affairs." As a conferred county lord by the emperor, she was of noble status. When had these lowlifes earned the right to meddle in her affairs? Su Yingxue observed Min Jia's aggressive demeanor. "With the county lord's attitude, not many will believe you're here to apologize. We came here for a family matter. Even if we want to apologize, the Marquis Manor should at least invite us in before we talk, right? Miss Su, you're in charge here. Surely you understand this basic courtesy." Madame Xing suppressed her anger and spoke politely to Su Yingxue. Was Su Yingxue deliberately embarrassing her and her mother and dragging them down? They were noble and influential figures in Jiangdu City. They couldn't stoop as low as Su Han. If you're going to apologize, do it openly and sincerely. Let everyone witness it. It should be done in a dignified manner. Don't you agree, everyone? Every word Su Yingxue spoke was heard by everyone present. They all wanted to witness this scene. "What do you mean, witness? Su Yingxue, you're just trying to humiliate me and my mother." Min Jia gritted her teeth. "County Lord. Don't judge others by your standards. Not everyone is like you," Su Han said coldly. Su Han, despite being injured and carried out, stood tall and elegant. She may not be a county lord, but she exuded more grace than Min Jia. Hearing this, Min Jia couldn't help but ask, "Su Han, are you trying to humiliate me?" Madame Xing quickly covered her mouth and whispered in her ear, "Bear with it for now. Otherwise, you'll be exiled. You'll suffer greatly. My child, endure it." Chapter 599, Return the Dowry. Madame Xing put on a fake smile. "Hainer, you're right. Min Jia is young and immature. You've been her sister-in-law for so many years, so you should know her temper. Since you asked us to apologize to you here, well, do it. Madame Xing apologized to Su Han seriously. She was Su Han's elder and now her mother-in-law. Although she didn't lower herself, she still apologized to her. I'm sorry, sister-in-law. One was in the wrong when we quarreled before. Don't blame me. When you come back in the future, we'll still be a family. Although Min Jia said that, she was thinking that she would hang Su Han from the roof beam and beat her for 3 days and 3 nights as soon as she returned to the mansion. Su Han looked at them indifferently. Are you here to apologize sincerely and take me back to the prince's mansion? Of course it is. A trace of viciousness flashed across Min Jia's eyes. If she did not bring her back to the prince's mansion, how could she vent the anger in her heart? What about you, Madame Xing? Su Han looked over. Madame Xing put on a fake smile. Of course I'm sincere. Otherwise, one wouldn't have brought her here and let her suffer when Min Jia was injured. Madame Xing was smart enough to know that Su Han's injury was seen by everyone. She had to remind them that her daughter was also injured. Just as she was about to say that Min Jia was injured by Su Yingxue spoke first. Since you're sincere, then what about your sincerity? The wound on my sister's body, the 10 fingers clamped with silver needles, and the countless cudgel and whip wounds were all caused by the 2 of you. How are you going to compensate my sister? Madame Xing and Min Jia's faces darkened when they heard Su Yingxue's words. The people at the entrance of the manor were all surprised. Is he still human? How could you do such a vicious thing? She is the sister-in-law and daughter-in-law. This regional prince's mansion is too terrifying. That's right. Such a vicious woman came empty-handed to apologize. What's a few words of apology worth? Su Yingxue smiled in satisfaction. Did you hear that, Madame Xing? Even everyone thinks that you don't have any sincerity at all. Su Yingxue, what sincerity do you want? When it came to benefits, Madame Xing's eyes were filled with vigilance. Su Yingxue opened a list. This is the list of my sister's dowry. She has been managing the regional prince's mansion for many years and has spent a lot of the dowry she brought back. It's not too much to ask Madame Xing to return all the dowry she brought back to her, right? This. How could this be? She's already married to my brother. How can she ask for the dowry back? Min Jia objected immediately. After Su Han was kidnapped, Madame Xing entered her courtyard and took away her dowry, giving her most of it. If he were to return it to her now, wouldn't he be asking her to spit out all the gold, silver, and jewelry in her pocket? Humans were greedy. Who would be willing to return what they had already eaten? Naturally, Madame Xing was unwilling to do so, but Chu Xiaoshan's repeated warnings were still ringing in her ears. He said, no matter what unreasonable requests Su Yingxue and Su Han make, you have to agree to them. Otherwise, no one can save you when you're exiled. Madame Xing gritted her teeth with red eyes and turned to Su Yingxue. All right, I promise you that one will have someone carry Su Han's dowry according to the list and return it to her. In this way, she will be able to calm down and follow us back to the regional prince's mansion, right? Chapter 600, Tear off their faces, not yet, Madame Xing. Don't worry. Su Yingxue looked at her with a smile. My sister has been abused by you for so long. You haven't compensated her for her mental loss. You still want to suffer mental damage. In your dreams. Min Jia shouted at her. This was provoking them. Give an inch and take a mile. Su Yingxue pointed at Su Han. Don't you know about my sister's injuries? Do you need me to do it all over again? After saying that, she pulled out the red jade soft whip. The sound of the whip breaking through the air made Min Jia's heart tremble violently. She bit her lip and trembled. This was Su Yingshu's territory, so there was nothing she didn't dare to do. Moreover, they were in the wrong in this matter. Even if Su Yingshu hit them in public, no one could say anything. Min Jia could only grit her teeth. Su Yingshu, what do you want? How are we going to compensate Su Han? Su Yingshu smiled. Her eyes curved, and she looked extremely gentle. The regional prince's mansion is rich and powerful. It shouldn't be a problem for you to take out 100,000 taels of silver to compensate my sister and comfort her injuries, right? Madame Sheng and Min Jia were shocked. Their mouths were so wide that an egg could fit inside. 100,000 taels of silver. Even Qingzhi was a little surprised. It's not a small sum, she whispered as she stood beside Su Han. It would not be easy for the regional prince's mansion to take it out at once. Of course, Qingzhi had heard from Su Han that the regional prince's mansion didn't have much cash because Madame Sheng and Min Jia were extravagant and had some connections. They couldn't embarrass the regional prince's mansion, so they often asked Su Han to take out her dowry to make up for the deficit. The moment Su Yingshu mentioned the 100,000 taels of silver, it was as if a knife had been cut into Madame Sheng and Min Jia's hearts. However, when she thought about how she was doing this to avenge her daughter, Qingzhi felt that it was not enough. This wasn't enough to repay Su Han's pain. Madame Sheng took a few deep breaths to calm herself down. Su Yingshu, you're asking for too much. Why don't you take a look at Su Han, this little wretch? Is she worth 100,000 taels? That's right. Su Han is a broken shoe now. If she leaves our regional prince's mansion, no one will want her. What right does she have to ask for 100,000 taels? Min Jia and Madame Sheng shouted at Su Yingshu. Why? Su Han, who had been silent, raised her head and raised her jade-like neck like a noble and beautiful swan. In these few years, if I hadn't used the dowry to make up for the deficit in the accounts, how could the regional prince's mansion have lasted until now? If I hadn't been in charge of the entire regional prince's mansion, what kind of terrible situation would the manor be in now? If I hadn't given you all the benefits, where would you have gotten your glamorous looks from? Su Han's questions were like a strong hand that pulled at Madame Sheng and Min Jia's thick skin and tore it apart layer by layer. She exposed their shameful behavior to the public and made them criticize them. Look, she's a noble madam and a county lord. How ridiculous. The dignified regional prince's mansion wants to touch a daughter-in-law's dowry. How useless. These 100,000 taels is not enough. Miss Su is too kind. They caused the regional princess to be so miserable. Miss Su should make them go bankrupt. Everyone's discussion made Madame Sheng and Min Jia lose face. Chapter 601, Give me 100,000 taels of silver. Mother, we can't give the money to her. Min Jia pulled on Madame Sheng's sleeve and gritted her teeth. We won't give her money. Why should she get so much money? She's not worthy. Yes, she's not worthy. Madame Sheng was so agitated by the amount of 100,000 taels that she threw away all the pride she had held on to for so long. She spat at Su Han, turned around, and waved her hand to have someone carry Min Jia into the car. Miss. Jifin quickly wiped Su Han's face and said in disgust, You're just a noble madam. How can you behave so shamelessly? They were better off as maids. Su Yingshu patted Su Han's shoulder lightly. Don't worry, sister. Even if it's just a little bit of filth, it'll make them pay back tenfold or even 100-fold. Since they dared to spit on Su Han, they were prepared to pay a terrible price for it. Su Yingshu asked someone to carry Su Han back to the medicine hut and settle her down. Then, she waved her hand and summoned a shadow guard, giving him a task. On the way home, the carriage of the regional prince's mansion tripped on something and everyone in the carriage fell out. Half of the carriage was smashed into pieces. In the carriage, besides the old regional prince who was in good condition, both Madame Xing and Min Jia were injured, especially Min Jia who had already broken her leg. When the court physician arrived, she cried and made a scene for a long time until midnight. In Madame Xing's room, she was crying her eyes out. "Son, it's not that I don't want to apologize. It's just that Su Han is too heartless. Not only does she want her dowry back, but she also wants us to give her 100,000 taels of silver. This is 100,000 taels of silver." Chu Xiaoshan's brows were tightly knitted. He had never expected such a situation. It wasn't a big deal for Su Han to get her dowry back. She could just take out all the money she had spent on the regional prince's mansion and return it to her. However, this 100,000 taels of silver, the old regional prince held the account book in his hand. He was in charge of the account book after Su Han's accident. He wouldn't know if he didn't look, but he was shocked when he saw it. The expenditure of this residence was such a huge sum. Moreover, Madame Xing and Min Jia spent the most. Min Jia would ask Su Han for money every month, and she would take a large sum of money. In recent years, she had taken out hundreds of thousands of taels of silver intermittently. Chu Xiaotian flipped through the account book and frowned. What did Min Jia do with so much money? "Mother, have you interrogated her properly? She's a girl. Other than clothes and jewelry, what else can she do to spend so much money?" She was the county lord and had to deal with all kinds of noble ladies in Jiangdu City. For the sake of face and reputation, how could you let her lose face? If she lost face, wouldn't our regional prince's mansion lose face as well? What's wrong with using some money? Madame Xing had always defended her daughter without thinking. Even in such a situation, she was no exception. "Are you stupid?" The old regional prince pointed at Madame Xing's head and chided her. "How can she squander so much money?" Chu Xiaotian took a deep breath. Su Han had told him that Min Jia's expenses were too high, and sometimes she couldn't afford it, so she had to use her family's dowry as compensation. At that time, he thought that Min Jia was a child and did not know how much money she had. It was not a big deal to waste some money. Anyway, the regional prince's mansion would not be able to afford it. But now, he realized that there was a huge problem with Min Jia. "Mother, where did Min Jia spend her money? And who does she usually interact with? Now, tell me everything you know." Chu Xiaotian was extremely suspicious. Chapter 602. He wanted Su Han to come back to him. Madame Xing was stunned. She treasured her daughter, Min Jia, the most. She would always make her happy and give her anything good to her mother, even though she did not want it, and let Min Jia keep it for herself. However, Min Jia's kindness was priceless to her. She could not bear to let Chu Xiaotian check on Min Jia. She wiped her tears. "If you have time to check on Min Jia, why don't you think about how to solve the problem of Su Han's 100,000 taels of silver? One won't give her a single cent. She would rather throw the money into the lake than give it to Su Han. Madam, if our daughter-in-law doesn't calm down and refuses to come back, not only will you and Min Jia be sentenced, but our son's future will also be affected. The 9th prince holds half of the military power in the great Qing dynasty. If he says the word, how can our son lead the army in the future?" The old regional prince tried his best to persuade him. The current situation was no longer a small fight between Madame Xing and Min Jia. It was a matter of life and death for the entire regional prince's mansion. After all, he had experienced more. He advised Chu Xiaotian, "Son, in my opinion, if this 100,000 taels of silver can appease my daughter-in-law and make up with the Su family, it won't be too much. Chu Xiaoshan's eyes darkened. If Hainer can return to my side, I will not hesitate to give up the entire regional prince's mansion. After Su Han left him, he realized how much he loved her. Without her by his side, he could not sleep at night. Are you guys crazy? What did Su Han do to make you care about her so much? Madame Xing widened her eyes in disbelief. How could Su Han be worth 100,000 taels of silver? In the Marquis of Marshall South's manor, Su Yingxue came to change Su Han's dressing and checked her wounds. She was glad that Su Han's wounds didn't worsen, and she was in a good mood. Her wounds would recover soon. She just didn't know the pain in her heart. Even if the regional prince's mansion returns the dowry and gives me another 100,000 taels of silver, I am not willing to let Hainer go to the devil's place to suffer. Qingzhi hugged Su Han. Her red and swollen eyes were filled with tears. Jifin had suffered in the regional prince's mansion with Su Han, so she said indignantly, 100,000 taels, even 1,000,000 taels of silver could not buy back Miss' life. Back then, they had killed Miss. If it wasn't for someone saving us, how could Miss and I have survived until today? Under the light, Su Yingxue was wiping the red jade soft whip. She smiled and said, Auntie, don't worry. I will not let sister return to the regional prince's mansion. However, these 100,000 taels of silver. Why didn't sister want it? She has worked so hard for the regional prince's mansion for so many years, and now she wants to sever all ties with the regional prince's mansion. How can she not ask for their compensation? Yingxue, Auntie knows what you mean, but if we take this money, rumors will inevitably spread that we are deliberately blackmailing the regional prince's mansion. Qingzhi frowned worriedly. Of course, there will be rumors, but it's not what Auntie thinks. It's a rumor that's enough to give the regional prince's mansion a headache. Su Yingxue smiled confidently. She had already arranged for Wu Jinyan to take care of Madame Xing and Min Jia's daily expenses, which Su Han had listed. How many rich ladies visited Wu Jinyan's 1,000-jiao pavilion every day? Wouldn't these things spread all of a sudden? The news that Madame Xing and Min Jia had exploited Su Han's dowry would spread like wildfire. If they wanted to save face, they would have to give Su Han all her dowry and silver. There was also Chapter 603, Min Jia Raises a Man. Auntie, I've instructed the kitchen to prepare some tonics for you and sister, Su Yingxue said with a sweet smile. After you've used them, you should rest early. Qingzhi could sense that Su Yingxue wanted to speak to Su Han alone, so she took Jifin away and asked her to bring Su Han's portion over later. The candlelight in the room flickered, and the light emitted by the luminous pearl became even gentler. Sitting beside Su Han, Su Yingxue raised her eyebrows. Sister mentioned before that Min Jia's expenses are huge, and you were suspicious. Did you notice anything? Su Han nodded. Min Jia has a lot of expenses every month. Last year, she took out 10,000 taels of silver a month. I asked her how she used it, but she didn't answer. When one questioned her again, she started to lose her temper and even complained to her mother. One had no choice but to give it to her, but one suspect she gave all the money to someone else. Someone else? Su Yingxue's curiosity was piqued. She knew that Su Han must have secretly sent someone to investigate Min Jia. Su Han said, a man often appears in her courtyard. I'm afraid their relationship is not simple. Min Jia meets a man in private and even gives him money to support him. Su Yingxue was taken aback. It was understandable that Min Jia would have secret meetings with a man as an adult, but what kind of man would make her willingly pay to support him? And the amount was so huge. A year's worth was 100,000 taels. What kind of man could catch Min Jia's eye? He must be quite handsome, Su Yingxue chuckled. When Min Jia saw Ziwei, her eyes lit up. It was obvious how important his appearance was to her. That man is very cautious and has strong martial arts skills. My men were discovered once, so one had them watch him from afar. But no matter what, they didn't see the man's face clearly, nor did they know his background. Su Han frowned. She had a sharp mind and was born in the Marquis manor, so her thinking was much more agile than that of ordinary women. There were very few things that she couldn't find out. She had always been puzzled by the man who had secret meetings with Min Jia. But now, she had a question she needed to bring up to Su Yingxue. Yingxue, among the people that Min Jia sent to assassinate me, I feel like there's an expert that I'm familiar with. Sister, did you see his face? Su Yingxue asked. Su Han's expression turned serious. I didn't see him clearly, but one think he looks like someone. Who? Su Jinxian. Su Jinxian. Su Yingxue's eyes widened. Su Han's words reminded her of the black figure she saw in Min Jia's courtyard that day. It coincided with Ziwei's figure. Su Yingxue raised her eyebrows. Su Jinxian is a cautious person, much more alert than Su Yuro. Other than the day Lu Shulan married into the Marquis manor, I've never seen him again. Ever since Grandpa returned, he has never appeared, but I underestimated him. Su Han grasped Su Yingxue's hand, warmth filling her eyes. Yingxue, no matter what, sister, have to thank you for everything you've done for me. 111 Thank you when I escaped from that devil's place. There's no need for that. Su Yingxue and Su Han clasped their hands tightly. Sister and one share the same blood, and we are both daughters of the Su family. Naturally, we have to love each other. Compared to a glorious family, I think Grandpa would prefer to see everyone in the Marquis manor be safe and sound. Chapter 604. Touching her round belly, Su Han's eyes were filled with gratitude as she drifted off to sleep peacefully. What she needed to do now was to focus on recovering her health. The next day, just as Su Yingxue finished dealing with the household affairs, Jilan came to inform her, Miss, the regional prince's mansion has sent Miss Han's dowry and 100,000 taels of silver. Su Yingxue's lips curled up. Their actions are very swift. She hurried to the courtyard where Qingwan and Su Dingwei were staying. Qingwan had already checked with Xifin, and all of Su Han's dowry was there. Even the family jade bracelet that Su Han said had been stolen by Min Jia and returned by Qingwan was there, along with other boxes piled up in half the courtyard, neatly stacked with 100,000 taels of silver. Chu Xiaoshan's face darkened upon seeing Su Yingxue, but he had no choice but to address her. Su Yingxue, this is what Hainer wanted. I've already sent it all as compensation for her. When will you allow her to return to my residence with me? Sister is recuperating. With her injuries, she cannot move or work. Your Highness should be aware of this, correct? Su Yingxue replied casually. Then you should at least let me see her. Chu Xiaotian couldn't help but look anxious. The longer Su Han stayed away from him, the more uncomfortable he felt, longing to hold her in his arms as soon as possible. I'm sorry, sister doesn't want to see you. Your Highness, please leave, Su Yingxue said with a smile, once again escorting Chu Xiaotian out of the manor. She then went to the medicine hut to inform Su Han of the news and brought along the family jade bracelet. Su Han placed the bracelet back on her wrist, looking pleased. I thought one would never get this back. Sister, this is only a small portion of what you can reclaim. What they owe you must be repaid one by one. Su Yingxue's lips curled sharply. Naturally, Chu Xiaotian was not satisfied with being chased away. Fortunately, Chu Qingye was helping him. Liang Jin's investigation progress was slow, encountering obstacles along the way. Qingzhi had always thought that this would make Su Yingxue anxious, and she would try to help Su Han leave the regional prince's mansion as soon as possible. There would always be a flaw to follow. However, on the contrary, not only was Su Yingxue not anxious, she was so calm that he couldn't understand it. On the day Qingzhi was confused by Su Yingxue's behavior, she was once again enjoying delicacies at the ninth prince's mansion. Chu Han fed her mouthful by mouthful. Su Yingxue touched her gradually rounding belly, dodging Chu Han's chopsticks. Enough, Your Highness. If you keep feeding me, it'll become a bowl. Chu Han pinched her face, not entirely satisfied. Your body is still so slender. I'll find another world-renowned chef to nourish you. Su Yingxue licked the oil from her lips. Your Highness, please spare me. If she gained weight, how would he be able to carry her in the future? Of course, Su Yingxue didn't dare to utter such embarrassing words. Chu Han dragged her out for a walk in the garden, and they began discussing serious matters. Have the shadow guards found Su Jinxuan's hiding place? Chu Han nodded. You can go see him tomorrow, but 111 have the shadow guards protect you. You don't have to worry about them leaking any information. I've never worried about Your Highness people. Once we find Su Jinxian, my sister's case will be much easier to solve, Su Yingxue said, placing her hand on her bloated stomach. She had waited for a few days without acting quickly, wanting to give Su Han time to recover so that she could seek justice for herself in court. Chapter 605. Force Su Jinxian out. Secondly, she needed to apprehend Su Jinxian, the pivotal figure. Everything Min Jia had done must be connected to him. Chu Han agreed and supported her actions. The shadow guards were under her command. Su Yingxue touched the cold jade around her neck and smiled brightly. Having Your Highness' favor is indeed wonderful. It saved her a lot of effort. Every time Chu Han saw her smile, he would unconsciously curl his lips. However, this time, not only did Su Yingxue not see him smile, but his gaze became even more solemn. Su Yingxue raised her hand and gently caressed Chu Han's face. His delicate features were outlined with every stroke, and he was as deep and charming as ever. Is there anything bothering Your Highness? He looked depressed. Chu Han pulled her into his arms and pressed her head against his chest. His voice was low as he said, I thought that once old General Su returned, I would be able to propose marriage to him and make you my wife. However, I haven't been able to broach the subject with him yet. Su Yingxue's eyebrows twitched. So it was because of this. Can we wait until sister's matters are resolved? Su Yingxue's voice was very soft as she gently patted Chu Han's back. Chu Han said in a low voice, okay. However, the wait was too unbearable. Every day felt like a year. His desire to marry her grew stronger every day, and he could not control it. Su Yingxue didn't dare to look up at Chu Han's expression. She started to worry about her grandfather's attitude when she mentioned this. She did not dare to mention it to her grandfather several times because she could sense his disapproval and dislike. She could understand how much her grandfather loved her, and even more so, how much Chu Han loved her. However, these two forces of love came from different directions. She was placed in the middle and burned, making her not know what to do for a moment. Outside the city, at the graves of Lu Shulan and Su Yuro. Su Yingxue had been waiting there since early in the morning. When Su Jinxian came over with the offerings and saw Su Yingxue, it was already too late for him to escape. He could sense that there were experts all around him. It would be difficult for him to escape. He could only walk before Su Yingxue and properly place the offerings. Then, he looked up at Su Yingxue. Why did you come to look for me? Su Yingxue's lips curled into a smile. She looked at Su Jinxian with a scrutinizing gaze. To be honest, she had never looked at Su Jinxian carefully in her previous life. In her previous life, because she was too stupid before Su Jinxian could do anything, Lu Shulan and Su Yuro had already killed her. In this life, when she first met Su Jinxian, he easily let her tie him up. He gave in too easily, and she was too careless before. But now that she looked at him, Su Jinxuan's feminine face had a unique charm. Perhaps his eating habits were different from those of ordinary people. He was very tall, but he was on the skinny side. He always wore black clothes and a tight belt. His small waist made many women envious. He was thin and his face was thin. The outline of his entire face was particularly prominent. He had dark skin and a pair of slender and cautious eyes. When he narrowed them, he looked like a venomous snake that would pounce on someone and bite them to death at any time. After Su Yingxue finished sizing him up, she smiled and said, "Of course, I'm here to see what my younger brother, who was hiding and making me careless, looks like." Su Jinxuan's eyelids couldn't hide the gloominess in his eyes. "So what if you saw it?" Chapter 606, Su Hao did not send another letter. "I want to praise you when I see you." Su Yingxue raised her foot and stepped on Lu Shulan's tombstone. It was as if she could not sense Su Jinxuan's anger at all. "You were tied up by me during the competition at the Wangzhong Tower. You had already noticed that you were not a match for my uninjured brother, so you naturally surrendered. Even if someone asked about it later, he could frame her for it. This was a smart move." As for Lu Shulan and Su Yuro, each of them was more stupid than the other. He didn't make a move because he knew that he was alone and weak. If he appeared rashly, he would only get himself involved. Therefore, he had been keeping a low profile. If it weren't for Su Han's glance before, they would still be in the dark. Su Jinxuan's gaze moved away from the tombstone, and a smile appeared on his thin face. "Sister, you must be joking. I'm just a bastard son without any status. How would one dare to fight with brother for the position of general? I still have some self-awareness." "Not only do you have self-awareness, but you're also very smart. You're so smart that one can't find your flaws. What should one do?" Su Yingxue tilted her head and sighed. She seemed helpless. Su Jinxuan's cold gaze fell on Su Yingxu's feet. She changed her foot to the tombstone as if she wanted to provoke him. "Ha!" His lips curled into a mocking smile. There were many people with strong martial arts skills around him. If they wanted to fight, he would not be able to gain the upper hand. At this moment, he could only deal with Su Yingxue properly. "I don't know what flaw sister wants. Jinxian will do my best to satisfy sister." Su Yingxue couldn't help but look at Su Jinxian in a new light. "You still call me sister, so one came to inform you. If you have time, go back to the Marquis Manor to pay your respects to grandfather. After all, you're a member of the Su family. You can't always wander around without a name and rely on others to support you, right?" After Su Yingxue finished speaking, she smiled and left. She was certain that Su Jinxian would return to visit her grandfather. With his current power, he had no other choice. Even if he wanted to have another choice, she would let the shadow guards force him into a corner. When Su Yingxue returned to Jiangdu City, she went to visit Wu Jinyan and told her about Su Jinxuan's return. She would have to trouble her to let Min Jia know. Wu Jinyan immediately sent someone to do it. However, Su Yingxue saw that she was in a daze and asked with concern, "Sister-in-law, are you feeling unwell? Let me take your pulse." As she spoke, she wanted to hold Wu Jinyan's hand, but Wu Jinyan shook her head. "I'm fine. One just really wanted to ask. Yingxue, has your brother written to you recently?" She suddenly exerted force, and Su Yingxue could feel her nervousness and urgency. Su Yingxue thought about it. When her grandfather had just returned, Su Hao had sent a letter. Her grandfather and she had written a letter to Su Hao together. Yes, why? Sister-in-law, didn't you receive brother's letter? She replied. Previously, because Su Hao had sent letters to Wu Jinyan very frequently, he had used different messengers, so they received the letters at different times. Su Yingxue looked at Wu Jinyan and frowned slightly. Sister-in-law, did something happen? Wu Jin's tightly held breath relaxed, like a body without a soul. Ever since that letter I brought to the Marquis Manor, one have never received any more letters from him. I thought that he was busy with work, but one have sent him letters for 2 consecutive months, and there has been no reply at all. Wanna gift the story? Try 1. Comment vote send gift 0 comment 2 left chapter 607. As if they were not born from the same mother. Wu Jinyan's gloomy expression made one's heart ache. Su Yingxue patted her back and comforted her. I'll send someone to Bamboo Leaf Pass to take a look. Sister, don't worry. Brother won't let you down. Maybe he's too busy. After Su Yingxue said that, Wu Jinyan felt much more relieved. Then before you send someone to leave, I'll take some things. You can get him to bring them to your brother. All right. Su Yingxue returned from Wu Jinyan's place and placed this matter firmly in her heart. When she returned, she had already decided on a candidate. Su Jinxian returned to the Marquis Manor in the afternoon to visit his grandfather. The corners of Su Yingxu's mouth curled up as she went to the front hall. Su Qingzhi, Su Dingheng, and Su Jinxian were all there. Su Jinxian was very polite. When he saw Su Yingxue, he immediately greeted her. Greetings, sister. Yes. Su Yingxue nodded lightly. Both of their eyes were calm. The scene was so harmonious that Su Dingheng felt uncomfortable all over. However, when he saw Su Jinxian, he missed him and felt guilty. He had to beg Su Yingxue. Yingxue, now that father is back, your brother is back too. You see, he is still a descendant of our Su family. We can't let him wander outside, right? Su Yingxue replied, yes, one can't. Su Dingheng was excited. Then can you let him enter the family tree and return to the Marquis Manor to live? Su Yingxue was silent. Su Dingheng was making things difficult for her by asking her such a question in front of Su Qingzhi. Su Qingzhi glared at Su Dingheng. I'm not dead yet. Why are you so anxious about the genealogy? One don't dare. Su Dingheng immediately shrunk like a quail. When Su Jinxian heard this, he stood up very sensibly. Jinxian only came back today to visit grandfather and father. One don't have any other thoughts. Jinxian will leave now and won't cause trouble for the Marquis Manor. Chapter 607. As if they were not born from the same mother. Wu Jinyan's gloomy expression made one's heart ache. Su Yingxue patted her back and comforted her. I'll send someone to Bamboo Leaf Pass to take a look. Sister, don't worry. Brother won't let you down. Maybe he's too busy. After Su Yingxue said that, Wu Jinyan felt much more relieved. Then before you send someone to leave, I'll take some things. You can get him to bring them to your brother. All right. Su Yingxue returned from Wu Jinyan's place and placed this matter firmly in her heart. When she returned, she had already decided on a candidate. Su Jinxian returned to the Marquis Manor in the afternoon to visit his grandfather. The corners of Su Yingxu's mouth curled up as she went to the front hall. Su Qingzhi, Su Dingheng, and Su Jinxian were all there. Su Jinxian was very polite. When he saw Su Yingxue, he immediately greeted her. Greetings, sister. Yes. Su Yingxue nodded lightly. Both of their eyes were calm. The scene was so harmonious that Su Dingheng felt uncomfortable all over. However, when he saw Su Jinxian, he missed him and felt guilty. He had to beg Su Yingxue. Yingxue, now that father is back, your brother is back too. You see, he is still a descendant of our Su family. We can't let him wander outside, right? Su Yingxue replied, yes, I can't. Su Dingheng was excited. Then can you let him enter the family tree and return to the Marquis Manor to live? Su Yingxue was silent. Su Dingheng was making things difficult for her by asking her such a question in front of Su Qingzhi. Su Qingzhi glared at Su Dingheng. I'm not dead yet. Why are you so anxious about the genealogy? I don't dare. Su Dingheng immediately shrunk like a quail. When Su Jinxian heard this, he stood up very sensibly. Jinxian only came back today to visit grandfather and father. I don't have any other thoughts. Jinxian will leave now and won't cause trouble for the Marquis Manor. Su Jinxian stood up and was about to leave. Su Yingxue had to admit that Su Jinxian would retreat to advance. His brain was much better than Su Yuris. It was as if the two of them were not born in the same mother's womb. Wait. Su Yingxue stopped him. Since you're back, there's no reason for you to leave. After all, your surname is Su, so there's no place for you in the Marquis Manor. As for whether or not you'll be included in the genealogy, you'll have to ask grandfather to make the decision. Surprise flashed in Su Qingzi's eyes. Su Yingxue asking Su Jinxian to stay was something that he had not expected. He pondered for a moment. You can stay here for now, but we can talk about the matter of entering the genealogy in the future. Okay, Dad. Thank you. Su Dingheng's face was full of gratification, and he almost jumped up in front of Su Qingzhi. Su Qingzhi didn't want to look at him at all. He snorted coldly. If you want to thank someone, thank Yingxue. He would not let Su Jinxian stay. Back then, he had promised Long Shuli that he would not allow any nondescript person to enter the Marquis Manor and hurt Su Yingxue and Su Hao. Su Yuro was secretly brought back to the manor by Su Dingheng to be raised. After that, she had fawned over Su Yingxue, which was why she was not thrown out by him. Now, he was only respecting Su Yingxue's decision. Su Jinxian stayed in the marquisdom, and all the accommodation and other matters were naturally arranged by Su Yingxue. Su Yingxue thought that there would only be a commotion tomorrow, but she did not expect that at night, Min Jia would be carried and barged into the Marquis Manor. At that time, she was accompanying Su Han in the medicine hut. When Ziwei came to tell Su Han's delicate eyes showed a hint of understanding. You asked Su Jinxian to stay because you were waiting for Min Jia. Chapter 608, Su Yingxue's design. Su Yingxue smiled. Sister is smart. Min Jia is willing to spend so much money to support Su Jinxian, so she must have deep feelings for him. The methods she used to harm you are not something that her brain could come up with. Su Han also thought of this. Even so, Su Jinxian is a very cautious person. If he wants to get rid of Min Jia, it won't be difficult. I can't catch Su Jinxuan's fault for now, but I want to get rid of the regional prince's mansion once and for all for my sister. Su Yingxue's eyes were sharp. She even asked Su Han to write 2 letters to her. Su Han didn't ask her what they were for. She wrote them according to her instructions and handed them to her. After Su Yingxue left, Jifin was extremely worried. Miss, these 2 letters are for your highness. Shouldn't Miss ask Miss Yingxue what to do? Su Han shook her head. She drank the medicine that Jifin brought her, and her gentle voice was firm. Yingxue always knows her limits. Everything she does is for me, and one will never doubt her. She believed in her judgment and trusted Su Yingxue even more. Su Yingxue stood outside Su Jinxuan's courtyard and looked around. Min Jia was carried away while crying. Su Jinxian would scold her for coming here so rashly. Coincidentally, she had sent someone to go back to the regional prince's mansion with Min Jia to deliver one of Su Han's letters to Chu Xiaotian. Chu Xiaotian read the letter and missed Su Han. He couldn't sleep for the whole night. He went to urge Chu Qingye to finish Liang Jin's investigation as soon as possible so that he could bring Su Han back. Chu Qingye felt that there was a trap in this matter. It might be Su Yingxu's scheme. However, due to Chu Xiaoshan's urgency, he could only release some witnesses and let Liang Jin open a court trial. This time, Min Jia was there too. She and some servants of the prince's mansion had confessed that they didn't mistreat Su Han, but they were willing to apologize to her and ask her to go back to the regional prince's mansion. Liang Jin couldn't prove that Su Han was abused by Min Jia in the regional prince's mansion, and he had to summon Madame Xing again tomorrow. Liang Jin's expression darkened. When he looked at Su Yingxue, he was afraid that she would be disappointed. However, Su Yingxu's face remained calm. She even turned around and said to Su Jinxian, "If that's the case, Sister Han will be disappointed." Su Jinxian smiled. "Sister, you won't disappoint her. Is that so?" "Brother, you think too highly of me." Su Yingxue patted Su Jinxuan's shoulder. To outsiders, the siblings seemed to have a good relationship. However, Min Jia's eyes were red with anger. "Su Yingxue, what right do you have to hit Jinxian?" Jinxian was the man she loved. She couldn't even bear to touch him, but Su Yingxue treated him like this. And in front of her. Chu Xiaotian was anxious to think of a solution with Chu Qingye, so he did not stay behind to watch over Min Jia. Su Yingxue and Su Jinxian came out together and saw that Min Jia was still waiting at the entrance of the capital prefecture. Su Yingxue smiled at Su Jinxian and said, "Brother, it seems that someone is waiting for you. Why don't one go back first and let the two of you talk?" "Sister must be joking. I don't have much of a relationship with her." Su Jinxuan's expression was indifferent. In order not to let Su Yingxue have a hold on him, he immediately left. He did not care about Min Jia's expectant gaze or how disappointed she was. Min Jia had been waiting for Su Jinxian for so long, but not only did he not come to see her, he did not even bother to look at her. Min Jia immediately covered her face and cried. Chapter 609. What should he do next? Su Yingxue approached Min Jia, looking down at her with a hint of sympathy in her eyes. "My younger brother didn't mean to ignore you, County Lord. After all, there are so many people outside, and the nature of your relationship with him is unclear. You may not care about your reputation, but what if his reputation is tarnished?" Min Jia gritted her teeth in anger. "Su Yingxue, you. Was it you? You forced Jinxian?" Min Jia accused. "Otherwise, he wouldn't treat me like this. He used to be very good to me. I didn't force him. It's just that he's currently staying in the Marquis Manor and everything is under my control," Su Yingxue said casually, causing Min Jia's heart to skip a beat. She instantly began to worry about Su Jinxian and forgot all about his scolding last night. Su Yingxue believed that the few times she had beaten her up and her leg were enough to make her worry about Su Jinxian. As expected, Min Jia also began to suffer from insomnia. In Su Yingxue's room, Chui Han listened to the report from the shadow guards with her. He looked up at Su Yingxue. "By forcing Su Jinxian to return to the Marquis Manor, you are causing the people of the regional prince's mansion to panic." Su Yingxue supported her chin with her hand and nodded. If Su Jinxuan stays in the Marquis Manor, Min Jia will think that I have control over the man she loves. Su Jinxuan is a smart person. He won't meet Min Jia at a time like this. He will only think that Min Jia is a hindrance and prevent himself from being dragged down by her. So, as long as Su Jinxuan doesn't appear for a few days, Min Jia will panic. The more flustered she was, the more she could make her suffer a crushing defeat. Su Ying's thoughts and calculations were exquisite. After a series of operations, she could use a single point to take down the entire regional prince's mansion. Qingzhi pulled Su Yingxue into his arms and rubbed her little head. My little dumpling is impressive. Your Highness has already praised me like this, so one believe it. Su Yingxue was smug. It was fine if others praised her. She was not as good as Qingzhi. He had seen so many storms and powerful figures, but he felt the same way. She felt very comfortable. After Su Han's affair is settled, one will visit you again. Qingzhi lowered his head and pecked Su Yingxue on the cheek. A trace of panic flashed across Su Yingxue's eyes. Your Highness, you don't have to be so anxious. There's still a lot of work to be done. Moreover, elder sister has just broken off her ties with regional prince, and you proposing marriage to me will inevitably cause embarrassment for the Marquis Manor. Qingzhi's handsome brows furrowed. It wasn't the first time he noticed it. Su Yingxue was trying to stop him. He tightened his grip on Su Yingxue's wrist. Are you nervous? What are you nervous about? No. No. Su Yingxue's eyes widened. Qingzhi had almost discovered her. Qingzhi's gaze became sharper. In her panic, Su Yingxue hugged his neck and kissed his lips, forcefully entangling them. When it came to kissing, she had never been the one to take the initiative. Now that she was forced to take the initiative, she didn't know what to do next. As she pressed her lips against Qingzhi's and Su Yingxue's temperatures. What should I do? What should I do next? Open your mouth. Penetrate. Suck. Oh, Su Yingxue's mind was in a knot. She was looking forward to Qingzhi's reaction, but when he turned the tables, Qingzhi remained unmoved. It was steady. It was a stable batch. Su Yingxue was crying in her heart. The next time she kissed Qingzhi, she would ask Chu Jinling to bring her 8 or 10 picture albums so that she could familiarize herself with him. Chapter 610, People, nothing special. Just as she hadn't made a reaction yet, Qingzhi's husky and seductive voice startled her awake. One didn't expect you to like this. Like what? Su Yingxue's heart was as confused as her brain. In your manner, having an affair. Su Yingxue was confused by his words. How was this an affair? Su Yingxue's mind cleared up a bit, and she realized that this wasn't an affair. It was late at night, and no one knew that Qingzhi had come to her place and been intimate with her. She wasn't cheating, was she? Su Yingxue felt that this was a more legitimate reason, so she said to Qingzhi righteously, that's right. I just like to cheat. Your Highness, if you don't like it, well, you have to like it. Anyway, he spoiled her. Qingzhi's eyes sparkled with amusement. All right. He liked it when she was like this, proud of herself because he treated her well. Qingzhi's woman had to be pampered to the point of being lawless. He would do whatever she, Su Yingxue, wanted to do. He wrapped his arms around Su Yingxue's waist and whispered into her ear, don't worry about Su Han. I've already informed the imperial family about it. Once Liang Jin closes the case, the imperial family will agree to let Chu Xiaotian separate from her and return her freedom. Su Yingxue's eyes flashed with amazement. Your Highness, you're amazing. The most challenging part of Su Han and Chu Xiaoshan's feud wasn't the case itself, but the attitude of the imperial family. After all, Chu Xiaotian was a member of the imperial family, and Su Han was his official wife registered in the imperial family's genealogy. Removing his name from the list wouldn't be easy. However, Chu Yihan had managed to settle this matter. Su Yingshu smiled in front of him, her eyes as pure as a child's. Chu Yihan's heart warmed as he recalled the image of the little dumpling who had touched his face and said she wanted to marry him 13 years ago. Liang Jin gathered everyone and officially started the trial. On the day they planned to close the case, the entire Marquis Manor mobilized. Since Su Han could walk, Su Yingshu ordered Su Miaoyan to stay by her side. You must take good care of Sister Han. If anything happens to her, I'll deduct your rose cake. Su Yingshu reminded her. Su Miaoyan's long hair swayed as she winked at her. No. I'll follow Sister Han to the toilet. I won't give you a chance to deduct my rations. Su Yingshu pinched her nose and walked to Su Han's side. Today, the capital prefecture was packed with people. Su Yingshu felt that someone was observing her. She turned around and glanced at the crowd. Quite a few people were looking at her. Su Yingshu sighed with relief. Since she was the one in charge of this matter, it was normal for people in the crowd to look at her. Hence, she didn't pay much attention to it. In the crowd, a man was sitting in a wheelchair. He looked away from Su Yingshu indifferently. Let's go. Young master, aren't you going to take a look? Noble Consort said that this genius Dr. Su is very powerful and wants you to interact more with her. The servant beside him reminded him. Half of the man's face was covered by the crowd, but his thin lips and jaw were exposed, revealing his extraordinary beauty. It wasn't difficult to imagine that he was an extremely handsome man. He replied lackadaisically, the noble consort only wants to cure my illness. There's nothing special about people. All right, young master, let's go back. The group of people came without any sense of presence and disappeared without any sense of presence. No one noticed. Chapter 6:11, Overturn the testimony. Start over. The personnel from the regional prince's mansion pushed aside the surrounding crowd before they were able to enter the capital prefecture. Because of Liang Jin's customs, trials were always conducted openly without concealment, subject to public oversight. Therefore, even though they felt their private matters should not be aired publicly, they had no choice at this moment. In the eyes of the commoners, the people from the regional prince's mansion were like rats crossing the street, being scolded and beaten. Especially the commoners who had been favored by Su Han when she was the regional princess. They had prepared eggs and rotten vegetables and threw them at Chu Xiaotian and Min Jia. As a result, the moment Min Jia and Chu Xiaotian entered the capital prefecture, they had to change their clothes before going to court. In the hall, Liang Jin and Chu Qingye sat side by side. Liang Jin announced loudly to the crowd, the case between Miss Su and Yangon County's prince is a case of the imperial family. Therefore, I will be hearing it together with the seventh prince, who is temporarily acting as the Minister of Justice. Yes, Lord. Everyone nodded slightly. Liang Jin first read out the results of Min Jia's trial. However, before he could finish reading, a servant in the regional prince's mansion said, Lord, the testimony I gave last time was wrong. Can you please give me a chance to testify again? Liang Jin frowned. Preposterous. Do you know that perjury in court is against the law? Lord is wise. I'm only afraid of the regional prince's mansion's prestige. After the regional princess left the prince's mansion, everything in the prince's mansion was controlled by Madam. Even if one wanted to say it, one would not dare. This servant was called Zhang Wu, and he was Su Han's most trusted person in the mansion. He had wanted to speak up for Su Han in the court, but Su Yingxue had sent someone to tell him not to tell the truth too early. They should tell the truth according to what the regional prince's mansion told them to, and they should only tell the truth when Su Han appeared. For so long, he and the others had been holding back. When Liang Jin heard him say this, he felt that something was amiss. "I'll give you another chance, but you have to tell me the truth. If you hide anything else, one won't forgive you." "No." Chu Xiaotian stopped him. "Sir, this person has gone back on his word. I'm afraid he has long planned to harm our regional prince's mansion. I don't think his words can be trusted." Chu Xiaotian turned around and glared at Zhang Wu. He did not expect that this group of servants, whom he had trained well, would dare to betray him at this moment. "I don't think so either. How could the testimony of a person who went back on his word be used as evidence? You can't trust him." Chu Qingye was naturally on Chu Xiaoshan's side. In the hall, Liang Jin was in a difficult position and even began to suspect. He asked Su Han, "Su Han, are you familiar with this person? Are you instigating him to say these words today?" "Lord." Su Han lifted her dress and slowly knelt with Su Miao's help. There were still some scars on her face, but her expression was magnanimous. "When I was still in the regional prince's mansion, Zhang Wu was indeed a capable person in the mansion. It's reasonable for you to suspect that one instigated him to change his testimony. However, one believes that he's not the only one who wants to change his testimony today. Yes. What we said before was also fake. The regional prince forced us to say this. We only want to give the princess justice. She has been working hard in the regional prince's mansion for the past few years and has done so many things for the prince's mansion. In the end, she is still treated like this. This is unfair to her." With Zhang Wu as the leader, more than a dozen servants of the regional prince's mansion all overturned their own testimony. Liang Jin was quite surprised. He slapped the gavel and said, "If what you said is true, tell me everything in detail." Chapter 6:12. Turn things around. Starting from Zhang Wu, everyone testified that Su Han had endured a lot in the regional prince's mansion. As the steward, she was the best mistress imaginable. However, the master of the regional prince's mansion had always taken advantage of her kindness, mistreated her, and bullied her. The servants recounted in detail how she had been put in difficult situations in the regional prince's mansion over the past few years, as well as how she had been forced to do menial and exhausting work in the mansion after her surgery. Su Dingwei and Qin Wan, who had accompanied Su Han for so many days, felt like their hearts were being torn apart when they heard the servant's testimony. How could they have imagined that the marriage they had been so satisfied with would push their daughter into such a dire situation? In the hall, the people from the regional prince's mansion had very unpleasant expressions. Chu Xiaotian was the most fiercely criticized. As Su Han's husband, he felt utterly incompetent. Instead of protecting Su Han, his actions made things worse, and Su Han almost lost her life because of his negligence. Madame Sheng and Min Jia were particularly embarrassed. Madame Sheng, once envied as the former regional princess, a noblewoman of the imperial family, was now exposed as someone so willful and cruel, who bullied her daughter-in-law. In the future, she wouldn't have the courage to face anyone among the noblewomen of Jiangdu City. Min Jia was even more frightened. Not only was she being cursed at behind her back, but Su Yingxu's piercing gaze also occasionally swept over her. Trembling, she couldn't help but think of Su Jinxian. If Su Jinxian were here, how wonderful it would be if he could protect her. Liang Jin listened to everyone's testimony and re-evaluated the case. The conclusion was, the regional prince's mansion abused the regional princess. After her injury and surgery, she was not treated with respect due to being a regional princess. Instead, she was forced to do rough labor, subjected to beatings, and mistreated, which goes against proper etiquette. Lord Liang, in my opinion, there are many suspicious aspects to this case. The original witnesses have all recanted their testimony today, which is highly suspicious. Their testimony cannot be relied upon. Furthermore, I believe that all these individuals should be expelled from the regional prince's mansion and never employed by noble families again. Such disloyal servants will only bring harm to their masters. Chu Qingye's words nearly drove Zhang Wu and the others to despair. He even threatened them, stating the consequences of going against the regional prince's mansion. Zhang Wu and the others were not without fear, but he raised his head and declared loudly, "Even if we are expelled from the regional prince's mansion, we will never change our testimony. We may lose our livelihoods, but we will not lose our integrity." This was what they had learned from Su Han. The other servants echoed his sentiment, and the atmosphere in the court became tense. Chu Qingye frowned. None of the regional prince's mansion servants were obedient. Overthrowing them would not be easy. Moreover, Liang Jin stated, "Seventh Prince, these servants have been under the surveillance of my guards since they filed the case with me. Upon investigation, my guards found no evidence of their contact with Su Han, so they could not refute their testimony. I believe their testimony is valid." Lord Liang, I disagree. This is Su Yingxu's scheme. It must be her. Chu Xiaoshan's face turned pale. He had neglected the servants at home and left everything to Su Han. However, he had already taken control of their families with their lives as leverage. He was certain that these servants would not betray him. But now, what was happening? Chapter 613, Min Jia's worry. He glared at Su Yingxue with resentment, but Su Yingxue simply smiled indifferently, as if to say, "Is it so difficult for her to save their families?" It wasn't. She couldn't directly intervene with these servants, but she had indeed saved their families. And as for who was right or wrong, everyone who had been through it knew well enough. She didn't need to do much, justice speaks for itself. Chu Xiaoshan's heart sank. Su Yingxue. He had actually been defeated by her here. His disappointed gaze then fell upon Su Han. "Hainer, is this what you wanted me to see?" He had been utterly defeated in front of Su Yingxue. Su Han knelt in the hall, her frame slender, her back straight, not even sparing him a glance. Chu Xiaotian was shaken by her cold resolve. Never had Su Han hurt him like this before. If it weren't for the fact that they were in public, he would have brought out the letter from his embrace and questioned her about it. If she had written to him expressing longing, why was she so heartless in public? After Liang Jin finished interrogating the servants of the regional prince's mansion, he proceeded to interrogate Min Jia and Madame Xing. Su Han had accused them of plotting against her. Liang Jin had the worms and eggs taken from the lotus pond, as well as the workers who had cleaned the pond for Min Jia. The workers confessed that Min Jia had instructed them to intentionally release those worms into the pond. They didn't know the purpose, but they were paid to do it. In Min Jia's courtyard, some servants confessed that she had intentionally caused Su Han to fall into the water. Su Yingxue also testified in court that she had performed surgery on Su Han and confirmed that Su Han was indeed a victim. Madame Sheng was in a panic. She knew about Min Jia's actions, even condoning them. However, Min Jia had initially assured her that it was just a minor punishment and that she had no intention of taking her life. She had not anticipated the situation escalating to such an extent. "Min Jia, County Lord, do you admit to framing Su Han with the worms in the lotus pond?" Liang Jin questioned sternly. Min Jia shook her head fearfully. "I don't admit it. I don't admit it." Madame Sheng, composed and resolute behind her, knew that as long as Min Jia didn't confess, there was still a chance to salvage the situation. She had her husband and son to rely on. They wouldn't be sentenced as long as Min Jia didn't confess. My lord, I'm not feeling well and I want to rest. Liang Jin frowned slightly. He wouldn't allow an ordinary prisoner to be excused, but seeing Min Jia being carried in with a broken leg, he allowed her to rest. When Min Jia reached the lounge with a cubicle, she sent someone to summon Su Yingxue. The maid awkwardly informed Min Jia, "County head, Su Yingxue said she won't come. If there's anything, she asks you to find her yourself." Min Jia looked at her broken leg. She couldn't walk, but she was consumed with worry. Until now, Su Jinxian hadn't appeared. The entire Marquis Manor family had mobilized, even Su Yingxu's seemingly inconspicuous father had come. Why hadn't Su Jinxian shown up? Had Su Yingxue made things difficult for him in the Marquis Manor and harmed him? The more Min Jia thought about it, the more anxious she became. She couldn't bear it any longer. She grabbed a cane and got out of bed. "County Lord, your leg hasn't healed yet. You shouldn't be walking. Get lost." Min Jia leaned on her cane, each step causing excruciating pain. But for Su Jinxuan's sake, she would endure any pain to confront Su Yingxue. Su Yingxue stood under the veranda, basking in the rare autumn sunlight. She squinted her eyes, tilting her head back, enjoying the sun's warmth. "Su Yingxue, you wretched woman." Chapter 614. Su Han's confidence. Min Jia's voice carried from afar, and Su Yingxue observed her limping figure, shaking her head. "Walking like that, your leg may never fully recover. It might leave you permanently disabled." "So be it. Tell me, what have you done to Jinxuan? Why hasn't he come? The entire Su family is here, yet where's Jinxuan?" Min Jia's eyes reddened as she demanded answers. "Jinxuan." Su Yingxue lazily placed her hand on her forehead. "A young girl like the county lord addressing my brother in such an intimate manner seems rather inappropriate, don't you think? It's better to address him differently." "It's none of your business. I demand to know where Jinxuan is. What have you done to him?" Min Jia was about to grab Su Yingxue. She was deeply concerned about Su Jinxian. "What I do to him is no concern of yours, County Lord. Who are you to him?" "Su Jinxian belongs to the Marquis Manor and is my brother. As his elder sister, now overseeing the manor, it's only natural for me to discipline him if necessary." Su Yingxue found an excuse to remind her, "You've harmed my cousin Su Han. If I take it out on Su Jinxian, what then? His martial arts are strong." "You're lying." Min Jia's heart was in turmoil. Strong martial arts. Su Yingxue pretended to be arrogant. "With the top assassin from the Silver Moon Pavilion by my side, can anyone be stronger? And with the poison Dr. Saint Juan in my household, can anyone escape? With them, I don't even need the shadow guards your highness sent me." Su Yingxue sighed as if lamenting. "Su Ying Shua. How could you treat your own her like this?" Min Jia wanted to tear her apart. "Ha! We don't share the same mother. Why can't I treat him like this? Just like how you treated my sister." Su Yingxue was about to leave. Her demeanor became more relaxed. Min Jia cried even harder. She had always been arrogant, but she suddenly put down her walking stick and knelt in front of Su Yingxue, begging, "Su Yingxue, please don't harm Jinxuan. I'll do anything you ask." As expected, Su Yingxue looked at Min Jia with pity. "I want justice for my cousin. You can think about what to do yourself." She left after speaking, but Min Jia remained kneeling, crying so hard that she almost fainted. It was only when Madame Xing and Chu Xiaotian found her that they carried her away. Su Han watched Su Yingxue return from a distance and understood. Is this your plan, Yingxue? They had saved the servants of the regional prince's mansion and allowed Liang Jin to take their testimonies. However, convicting Madame Xing and Min Jiao wouldn't be easy because they were not ordinary women. Su Yingxue smiled. Sister, I promised you I'd seek justice for you. Su Han's eyes were filled with gratitude. Thank you, Yingxue. But is sister willing to sever ties with Chu Xiaotian? Su Yingxue's face showed a hint of apology. I'm sorry, sister. I've read your letter and I can sense your lingering feelings for him. Su Han's eyes were calm, devoid of the grief and sadness she once had when leaving Chu Xiaotian. She assured Su Yingxue, don't worry. I'll make him personally sign the Book of Extinction. After that, I'll have nothing to do with him in this life. Su Yingxue was slightly surprised. She couldn't figure out what Su Han had in mind. In the past, she always felt that Su Han didn't seem like a daughter of the Marquis Manor. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.